All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to cover today. And I'm so irritated because I have this awesome countdown video. But everybody will just have to tune in for Shop Talk next week to see that. But in the meantime, Alex, if you can you continue to work with Erin and see if she can get in? And I'm going to go ahead and get started with everything else. Well, guys, welcome to this kickoff to Leasing season 24. Excited about getting everything started with this webinar if we can get all the technical issues worked out. I do want to thank Opinion. If you don't know anything about Opinion, they're a reputation management resident satisfaction platform that has sponsored this webinar. And before we get started, I'm going to go play a quick message from one of their co-founders. So stay with me here just a second. Well, Alex, thanks for joining us today, and thank you for yourself and for Opinion for sponsoring this first webinar of the leasing season as we kick things off. Really appreciate that. I first came across Opinion back in 2019 when Justin, your CEO, reached out to me and showed me a little bit of the platform and what you guys were doing from a reputation management standpoint. And I was just really kind of blown away at how different you guys were doing it. And the next year, you guys were in our Fab Five. And for those that don't know about the Fab Five, that's kind of our annual thing that we put out saying, hey, here are 5 companies that we think are going to make a big impact on student housing. And now fast forward to 2023, you guys have really embraced student housing. You just made partnership announcements with Cardinal Group and Yugo, and I believe also University Partners and Walton Campus. So it's really cool to see how these student housing companies are really embracing you guys.
Oh yeah, we're big fans of student housing. Those are some of the more recent partnership announcements we made, and we're stoked to be a part in helping those companies grow, along with many others.
So for those that, this may be their first time hearing about Opinion. By the way, that's Opinion spelled with a double I at the end, which that's a whole nother thing. I thought it was a typo the first time I saw it, but no, there's a reason behind it. But for those that don't know about Opinion, give us a little bit of background on what it is that you guys do.
Oh yeah, for sure. Once you see Opinion with 2 I's, you'll never spell it the same again. When I see it with one, I think my spell check's not working correctly. So Opinion is a fully comprehensive and automated resident experience platform. Opinion helps you attract and retain your residents by collecting real-time feedback and driving online reviews from residents as they have experiences with your management team. Our goal is to help you keep a finger on the pulse of the experience of all of your residents from before they come into lease until it comes time to renew.
Great. And I know the platform is now, kind of just a fully functional, automated, resident experience platform, which was, not the case in 2019 when I first came across you guys. So it's amazing to see how that has evolved. But you mentioned a lot about automation. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means to you guys?
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great question. It's 100% automated. That means it runs completely behind the scenes without your staff or team having to do anything other than what they're currently doing inside of the property management solution. So we have some really unique integrations with the PMS that will allow Opinion to send feedback requests to your residents through text and email after property tours, move-ins, move-outs, maintenance. We do quarterly feedback requests. We have some really unique ways to make this run automatically. And then Opinion will proactively be reaching out to your residents for feedback, and then proactively delivering that feedback to you to help you make better decisions and taking care of your residents.
Oh, cool. Hey, I know you guys made a recent announcement about the Assist AII. It's also a double I, but new artificial intelligence tool that you guys have launched. Tell us a little bit about that, because I don't think I've really seen that in action yet.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we own that double I, so it needs to be everywhere. I mean, a couple of our employees and staff here at Opinion have changed their names altogether, right, to spell with two I's. But yeah, it's amazing. So first off, Assist AI can help you with your review response. It will read the online review that was posted, and then it will type an appropriate response right in front of you. So you can review and make changes to that if you'd like to, and then post, right? So it takes all the guesswork and the creativity out of creating these responses to reviews online, because you're going to get a lot of them when you use Opinion. You need a good strategy for replying to those online reviews after they're being posted.
Awesome.
And then second, one of our goals has always been to provide you with direction rather than just information. And so what's really unique now is Assist AI will read through your entire Opinion dashboard. Inside of there is all of your online reviews, all of your feedback, everything that your residents have said about you. It'll digest all that information, and you can ask the Assist AI to tell you what's going on. So you could ask things like, what are the top 5 things going wrong at my property? Or what are the top 5 things going well at my property, right?
Oh, cool.
What's unique about this is it will spit out a bullet pointed list of what matters most to your current residents. So you can start to make better and informed decisions to manage their experiences rather than just guessing or following the industry trends at the time.
Great. Great. Well, I'm excited about that. I've been using Opinion for several years now and use it on the properties that I provide asset management for. And it gives me so much insight, into what our residents think about the property, and also just, kind of where we're getting it right at, and also on the things that, we need some improvement on. So it's fantastic. I'm going to put out a link for everybody that they can click on now and go get a little bit more information, and obviously leave their information if they want to get a demo. But Alex, thanks so much for joining us today. Again, thank you for sponsoring this webinar, and I think we'll see you next month at the NMHC conference.
Oh yeah, we'll be there for sure. Wes, you're the best, man. Thanks for having us.
All right, take care. All right. Well, thanks again to Opinion for sponsoring this this webinar. So really quick, I'd really like to see in chat just where everyone is coming in from. If you can let us know your city, your market that you're in, that would be fantastic. We've got an incredible lineup here today. There's a couple of things I want to go over with you as far as housekeeping stuff, I guess is the best way to label it. And if my slides will start. Okay, it's not starting for some reason, but I'll go ahead and, man, this thing is having some issues today. So anyway, on the right-hand side of your screen is the chat, and I'd love for you guys to interact with the conversation and the panelists there. And then additionally, if you can put any Q&A, there's a Q&A section just to the other, like a tab just to the side of the chat. If you can put the questions there, that's where, that way I can look at them directly and they won't be lost in chat. So anyway, we've got a fantastic group of experts today that are ready to they've been talking with their teams over the past couple of weeks and have some things scheduled over the next couple of weeks. And they've already been talking to me about how they're kicking things off. And I can't wait for you guys to hear from them. So Alex, we'll start with you.
Love it. My name is Alex Rippey. Some of you in the chat may know me as Alex Monreal, but I got married, had to do the whole name change thing. So Alex Rippey, I am over at GMH Communities. I'm our National Director of Leasing. We have over 30 properties nationwide. We have 3 different verticals: student, conventional, as well as our innovative living vertical, which is really cool. It's like a life science niche, has some really customized and flexible leasing options. So a little bit about GMH and myself.
Well, I think I'm next up to follow Alex. My name is Devin Shalley-Brumbaugh. I am the Director of Leasing and Marketing for the Tailwind Group. Tailwind's based in Mankato, Minnesota. I am actually based in Columbus, Ohio. We have roughly 14,000 student beds across the Midwest and South. And I was just super excited to get to do this with some people that I have crossed paths with in the past. Also, meet some new individuals in the industry, and there's nothing I love more than leasing. So I am super excited to chat with everybody today. It's going to be really, really fun.
All right, and I believe I'm next. I am Erin Perez. I'm the Managing Director of Revenue Optimization for Core Spaces. I have been with Core for over 5 years now, actually oversaw operations for 4.5 years until we started the Revenue Optimization Department back in October of 2022. We own and manage over 27,000 beds in owner-managed 43 communities across the nation, and I'm just incredibly excited to be with all of you here today.
Jake, I think you're next.
My next? I apologize. I thought I was going to be last.
We decided to go in alphabetical order.
I know that's wonderful. I'm Jake Jarman, and I serve as president of Redstone Residential. And I will fight all of you. I think I love leasing more than every single person on this call. So, Devin, I will fight you. I love leasing.
Okay. I'm not going to fight any of you. But my name is Tony Bufka. I'm with Senior Vice President with Asset Living. Asset Living is one of the top 3 property management firms in the country. We're over 200 properties and over 125,000 beds in the student department.
Well, fantastic. Well, guys, I think before we move forward with the next leasing season, we've got to look in the rearview mirror for just a few minutes and talk about the lessons that we've learned. And just wanted to know, what were some of the major lessons that you guys have learned from this past leasing season? And Devin, I think we're starting with you on this.
Yeah, I believe so. I definitely love that you worked in a reflective piece for this, because our industry is so cyclical. So if we don't take the time to recognize what went well and what didn't in the past year, I don't know how we could ever begin to set ourselves up for the next year. Tailwind had a great year, finishing pre-lease wise 96-97% as a portfolio, which we're super proud of. Yeah, Erin knows, because there are some tough markets that we are in, that we had to battle it out to the finish. I think a lot of people are having conversations right now about, what are enrollment projections? What does rent growth look like for the next year? And I think what I'm trying to do personally to kind of evaluate what went well last year, maybe didn't, and what we should do differently for this year is focus on student behavior. As these generations continue to rise into higher education, I think it becomes more and more true that students go at their own pace. And student behavior, I would argue, has just as strong of an impact on market shifts in terms of how quickly or slowly they pre-lease, as things like, overall rent growth and enrollment projections. So I spent a lot of time. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do that. I mean, if you can still afford to spend the time to get boots on the ground and talk to students, that's great, whether it's focus groups, surveys, whatever that looks like. But really taking the time to analyze student behavior and how that plays into market shifts, I think is the biggest lesson that I took away, that I really want to put time and attention into before we kind of push our teams to kick off for the new year. I would say, if I could boil it down to one other point, experience continues to be key as developments enter various markets. In a lot of ways, it's all variations of the same thing, maybe with a different paint color, different brand, those sorts of things. So, we're talking about, as a team, where are opportunities to leverage reputation to improve experience. So I would really boil it down to 2 points. I want to learn more about the student behavior and how that impacts kind of market shifts in key markets, very difficult markets, and then ways that we can continue. And I think that's really important when you think about things like opinion as well, the sponsor of this. How are we leveraging reputation into the experience piece? Because experience is really what's going to set you apart, as these markets continue to develop and evolve.
Great. Anybody else want to talk about their lessons learned?
I think mine would also stay flexible. Is that when everybody's going into the lease up, everybody goes into the lease up with a game plan, but make sure you have option A and B. You never know what roadblock is going to hit you, and make sure that you're staying flexible all the time. Also, invest in your staff. Make sure that you're constantly training your staff. Make sure that you're keeping them motivated.
So, Tony, sounds like you had an experience this past year with having to go to Plan B.
Well, you know what? Like we said earlier, is that it's enrollment is going to change. That's the one variable that right now a lot of us aren't 100% on, and nor do we know what that trend is going to be for 2024. So a lot of times we have to make it. You have to make a shift.
Yeah, I think one more thing for me that I really learned this year, and I think my whole team would agree, and most of you in this chat probably, is the leasing cycle and the leasing speed does not dictate a leasing season based off of how slow you go or based off of how fast you go. Because I think a lot of times, a lot of us have always been really quick and we wanted to really just get to the finish line as quick as possible. Whereas this year, some of my markets, we took our time. We increased rents. We really waited to see how the market reacted. We wanted to sign those leases at a value that we wanted to be perceived at. Whereas other markets, we leased so quickly. We had incredibly high renewal ratios, which is great. But if we would have slowed down maybe just a touch, increased rates, could we have gained more at the end of the day? Did we lose money? Did we leave any at the table? So I think really something to look back on for me is what is timing this year? And that's going to be a lesson learned for us.
Yeah. And I did launch a poll as we started this topic. I'd love for everybody to go answer it, but it is thinking about this past leasing season and your leasing teams, which area needs improvement. And we leased so fast, we probably left money on the table. Is the first option there, because I've heard that from several people.
Mm-hmm.
Wes, we're going to hit this later on, I believe, but staffing is crucial. In terms of lessons learned for this year, it's not like it was a new lesson learned, but a reminder that you're only as good as your site team. And as we look at those communities that did exceptionally well, even in tough markets, I think you can attribute a lot of that success to the site teams. And then those that struggled a little bit more or needed maybe a little more marketing traffic through the door, oftentimes it is the closing issue. And I see that's one of your options here as well, is that the team needed more closing power, more incentives or concessions they could use as their closing power, and then possibly more training. And I know we'll get into that later. However, definitely a lesson relearned for us was you're only as good as your site team.
Yeah. And I think for us at Core Spaces, we had a lot of lessons learned from the revenue optimization department because we were just created in the last year. And at Core, we launched leasing now on move-in day. And so we were several weeks into the leasing season when our department was created. So we kind of hit the ground running. So touching on leaving money on the table, what we saw is some of our markets really took off fast and we were not able to keep up with the rate increases. So we were able to take a step back and reflect and say, okay, what can we do this year to ensure that doesn't happen again in the 24-25 leasing season? So what we did is we worked with our products team and said, okay, we want to be alerted if a community increases X% in a day or X% in a leasing week. And keep in mind, we're looking at this information. The revenue optimization department is constantly looking at leasing numbers, velocity by floor plan. But this now allows us to kind of prioritize which communities we should attack first on a daily basis.
Aaron, can you talk a little bit about what it is that you guys are using for that new department, as far as some of the tools and things that you guys are using?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been building out our own BI tool. And so it's an internal tool that we're using. We're working closely with our products team. And so that has been really beneficial, especially for the 24-25 leasing season. We also leverage College House, I'm sure like everyone else on this call. And then we also leverage Entrata. And a lot of the things that we do as well as, we're looking at the information. We have reports from prior year and just really analyzing the data every single day to make sure that we're staying on top of the velocity.
So that's a perfect transition to the next thing I want to talk about in regards to rates and where everybody's kind of coming out for this upcoming leasing season. Pulled this up from College House's report back in this wasn't their June report. This was something that we did for the July shop talk. But nationwide, you're looking at I think that's a 10th, was a little small on my screen, but I think a 10.6% year-over-year increase at that point in time at the end of June. And then you can kind of see it there, based on the regions. And I think everybody's really happy with, what happened as far as rate increases this past year. And there was a lot of talk, in the past couple of weeks about how student housing is outperforming conventional, so far this year. And I'm a little hesitant to say, well, that's fantastic, because I kind of feel like, we trail conventional, just because of how much of a cycle that we're in. It just doesn't match up with what you're going to see, and it's typically trailing. So, with that being said, here's my next question. Out of the gate, where are you guys looking for increases, or are you looking for increases?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I can tell you right now, we're projecting about 8 to 9% effective rate growth for the 24-25 leasing season. And we truly believe that that is just base case. Those are our going out rates. We are, right now I've increased rates at 9 of our communities. And when I say that, we're not going across community and increasing the rates across all floor plans. It's very strategic. We're looking at velocity per floor plan, but we're looking at 3 more communities today. So we're constantly looking at increasing. And really, our ultimate goal at CORE is not only to meet but exceed what we did in 23-24, which was roughly 12% effective rate growth across the stabilized portfolio.
Gotcha.
I think this is tricky, right? This is an art and a science, and sometimes it leans more towards the art and some voodoo magic. And I'm worried that as we're aggressive here, looking at the numbers, we may have had an increase in our year-over-year rental rates, but we didn't necessarily hit possibly some of the occupancy numbers that we wanted. At least if you look at the most recent numbers that came out from College House, I believe they actually came out this morning. And so I think there's definitely some concern, and we need to watch out there. Clearly, there's going to be markets and certain demographics that are going to be great, and they're going to do really well. I think that going into next year, we're looking at this and factoring in a number of different things, including what does the economics look like? The economy, does it continue to grow? Next year is an election cycle that tends to bode well, typically, for an economy. They try to do everything they can to keep it afloat and keep it happy. But we've seen some crazy things in years past. So I think that similar to Aaron, we're looking at increases, but I don't know. I think we're tempering a little bit of our thought process here as compared to coming into this past leasing season that we just finished.
Yeah, I agree with Jake, and I think that we all need to look at occupancy is always the main goal, and then to have the marriage of occupancy and rent growth. We see the headline of 10% increases across the board, but then it cannot risk it as far as occupancy, because the math just doesn't make sense. So we look at the same thing at Asset is that we're going to get what we can get, and every market is very specific, but you don't want to miss 3% occupancy basically to get another point of rent growth.
Mm. Yeah, I'd agree with you both. I think that it really is a magic. I mean, it's a magic, it's a science, it's an art. I mean, the strategy that goes into rates, I don't think any of us on this call can say that we went so strategic in rate setting as we have this past year and even going into this year, because there's just so many new things coming to the table. And for us at GMH, I mean, with lease launches wanting to launch, I feel like first week of September, right? Like, when did that start happening? Like I miss the old days where we launched in November, right? Like, is it a time in the past? But you have to make those decisions a lot quicker. And I'm noticing in some of our markets where our occupancy isn't stabilizing necessarily where we pre-leased at. And so I'm asking the question, why? Is enrollment not necessarily where it projected? Are students not able to fund housing and their education? Like, why do I have, 3% deltas and 5% deltas on some of my markets and my occupancy? So that's really playing a part right now in some of those decisions of, well, are those occupancy variances in the markets that we pushed rates by anywhere from 10 to 18% effective rent growth? I mean, I'm in a market with Aaron right now, and I know we both can say we have a market that did phenomenal on an effective rent level. I mean, I would have never been able to quote that I could grow rent 17%. But we did. And that's crazy. And so to look at that number and try to match that number again for this year, it kind of is baffling. It's like, is this possible? Is this really something that we're going to do again for another year? So really trying to understand what the occupancy is, what the ownership goal is. Do they want higher rents? Is that more stability for them, or do they want more occupancy long term? So it's a lot of occupancy questions for me right now at GMH.
I would just
Hey, Devin, just really quick, just to let everybody know, I've just posted a poll question that I would like for just the site level managers and staff to answer, which is, does your property have starting rent rates and or rent tiers approved from your ownership yet? So love to see how everybody's.
That's a good poll.
Yeah. Go ahead, Devin. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I would just piggyback off of what Alex said. I mean, I remember the days, much like her, where pre-leasing started in mid-October, November 1st, and then slowly it crept up to October 1st, and then, the last week of September and September 15th. And so, by moving the starting line up that much further, you're having to make these risky decisions off of limited information. Mm-hmm. And, I think the important thing to note is, with a large majority of our portfolio hitting 100% pre-lease, I mean, yeah, there's, definite talk on the table about double-digit rent growth, which is great, super exciting. Also continuing to push the conversation of by floor plan, what does that mean when you hit certain markers throughout the year of, where can we tack a little bit on here and there? But I also think that we can get really caught up in the excitement and forget to focus on, kind of like what everyone has touched on, those markets where maybe occupancy didn't land quite where we wanted it to. What does stabilization look like for that next year? I don't think that it necessarily means that there's no rent growth potential. I look at markets like Alex and I are both in Lincoln, Nebraska, and, maybe it means that there's not as much rent growth, but in turn, we're lessening our concessions to try and make those rates more palatable and kind of, get those students conditioned to ultimately where we would like to see rent growth go. So I agree completely. Moving the starting lineup has really kind of, makes this a very intricate conversation with all the parties involved. And, I think for properties that you're looking for a stabilization year where maybe you had a misstep on occupancy, it's, how do you get those students comfortable with those rents and maybe position yourself where there is still growth potential. It's maybe just not as large as some of your better performing markets. And it's really, really tough. It's really, really intricate. And I think it goes back to Tony's point about being flexible. Within those first couple weeks of everybody kicking off leasing, you start to get clarity about where all of your competitors are falling. If you're not coming back to the table to have conversations at that point and, restructure early on, I think you're setting yourself up to, potentially trip and fall in January or February or, around that time frame of trying to, kind of ramp things back up again when the spring semester starts.
Yeah. I just ended that poll, and it looks like 50% of the site managers that are listening today, they're approved, locked, and loaded and ready.
They're all from the East Coast. I don't know. I think everybody who just did that poll is from the East Coast. Looking at those numbers, just a thought, and if we had other people on the panel who could answer it, it'd be great. But these numbers that we're seeing in terms of growth, that may be kind of what you see from Entrata or where the data is coming from. I'd love to know if there's an effective rate of growth because a lot of concessions were given out. A lot of people did not hit 100%. And I don't know if that effective rent was factored in and we're looking at it. So those numbers may be slightly skewed. Granted, I think everyone did have a great year this year. I think that looking at it more exhaustively and in greater depth and detail, I would be interested to see what we actually, come up with in terms of where that net effective rent landed.
I got to agree with Jake, and I got to say I've agreed twice with him. I'm going to stop doing that going forward. But I think the effective rate is something that I always look at, and Devin touched on it as well, is what did it take to get to that rent growth? I got 10, 11, 12%, but what did it take? What was my spend? How much did I have to incentivize staff? Were there any concessions that start balancing it below, basically below that GPR number to really, when I look at the 10%, I said, it's probably closer to 7 to 8% after expenses.
Right.
I'm just curious on this panel and even in the chat, did any of you lease up in a market where you've always had to give concessions and this year you didn't give a penny of concessions away? You leased up and you grew rents by how much?
I'm going to tell you San Marcos. San Marcos has always been a very tough market. 0 concessions. I have 8 properties just in my portfolio. 0 concessions, on the average 8% or better.
Which is unheard of, right?
Now,
it's
that's all about the university, though. That's about the enrollment growth of the university from the 2020 and 2021 COVID class that's artificially inflating the enrollment numbers.
So next year you're going to be giving away ponies, is what you're telling me.
Well, everyone's going to ride that wave. Everyone's going to ride that wave, but everyone also needs to understand that that wave ends at a certain point in time.
Yeah. Hey guys, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I want to just take a quick break here and talk a little bit about LeaseCon TurnCon that's coming up. This is put on by the guys at Interface, who put on the annual student housing conference in Austin each year. This is going to be their 5th annual LeaseCon TurnCon, and I invited Kelly Rich to actually come on and say a little something, but he couldn't be here today, so I actually recorded a quick video with him, and I'll play that for you guys right now. Well, Rich, I wish you could have joined us today on the webinar, but I appreciate you spending some time with me in advance to talk a little bit about LeaseCon TurnCon. It's the 5th one, so congratulations on making it to 5.
Yeah, thank
Anybody
you.
else
Maybe perhaps not coincidentally the best leasing environment the industry's ever seen, so maybe there's a correlation there.
Maybe so. Well, hey, it's going to be in Charlotte again this year. It was in Charlotte last year. I think it was a great venue. December, oddly enough, I think works pretty well for this conference because it's right when all the students are headed back, and we get a little bit of a break from leasing, but at the same time, we're not completely into holiday mode, so I think it's kind of just the perfect week to for folks to come into Charlotte and get with their peers and talk about what's ahead for the rest of the leasing season. But tell us a little bit about what's on tap.
Well, we like for this event, we kind of coin it to be helping student housing operators navigate leasing, marketing, and turn. So 3 components there. We got leasing, marketing, and turn. Turn, everyone's just got through it. I'm sure it's been a very tough last month for everybody. Supply chain issues have gotten better, but still new turn technology is always coming out. Interesting things to talk about there. Leasing, I mean, what can we say? It was an amazing year on the leasing side. I think everyone's really intrigued to see what the next academic year will be like from a leasing standpoint. Can the industry keep it up in terms of occupancy and rental rate increases? How much can you push rents without getting pushed back? So there's a lot, I think, of interesting stuff to talk about there. And then marketing, it's an ever evolving part of the business. Whether it's TikTok, whether it's NIL, whether it's new social channels, now AI thrown into the mix. There's all sorts of interesting twists and turns when it comes to marketing. So you put all those 3 elements together, and we've got a great day and a half.
Well, great. Well, really quick, go through the dates again, and I want to ask you a little bit about registration because I know you've got an early bird special that's out there right now as well.
Sure. So the dates, the date of the main day of the event is December 5th. Having said that, on December 4th, which is the Monday, we will have roundtables in the afternoon. I think we'll probably have some kind of special presentation around 4:30, and then we go into our opening cocktail reception, and then frankly, a lot of companies, it's evolved to the point where a lot of companies do parties that night as well, or events and dinners and things like that. So Monday, everything really kicks off in the afternoon, Monday, December 4th, and then pretty much full day on Tuesday, the 5th. We probably end up around 3:30, 4 o'clock. We do have an early bird rate, as you alluded to. The deadline for that, or I should say deadline, but it's still in effect until October 27th. So, plenty of time there. And then, the other good thing is we're kind of got the event announced earlier this year. So more lead time for everybody to plan. And I think really this should be our biggest and best LeaseCon, TurnCon yet.
Well, perfect. I'm excited. Looking forward to it. We'll put out the link for everybody to go register. But just in case someone's looking on their mobile phone or something and can't click on it, what's the best website for them to go to register?
Just interfaceconferencegroup.com. So INTERFACE conferencegroup.com. You'll see a bunch of interface events listed. Just scroll down, you find LeaseCon, click on that, and then it takes you to the conference website.
I just sat here.
Well, Rich, I appreciate it so much, and we'll see you in December.
Yep, thanks for rolling out the Charlotte welcome.
Sorry about that. I don't know why Webinar Jim is having so many issues today. Hey, really quick, while I get the next slide up, I just put up a question from David Seymour. I think David put it in the chat, but I'm pretty sure you're in the UK. So thanks for joining us from over there. But he had a question about international students, and if you guys are kind of putting an acquisition cost towards international students. Are any of you guys doing that? And kind of what is the international, I guess, scenario been for you guys this year? Did it improve over, certainly 2021? And, does it continue to improve for you guys? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
I'd just say that I think we all kind of agree it's just not been as fruitful as it has been in years past. We probably don't expect that change to be happening in 24 either.
I would just say on my end, I don't think I can give like a super well-rounded, educated answer on this, only because I don't have enough international markets. I think I was in more international markets. I could give a lot more thoughtful response. But what I will say, in the few international markets I'm in, I definitely saw a decrease. I can't talk about acquisitions, but I can say that I saw a decrease in international students where I typically rely on their occupancy, and I didn't really have them come over as much this year. And we got feedback from a lot of our locators that there was just some tension and they weren't coming over in mass numbers this year. So from my little educated insights of my few properties, that was the feedback that I received. So I would love to have those international students. I just didn't get them this year as much as I had in years past.
Gotcha. Well, hey, I want to go ahead and I'm sorry, Aaron, did you have something?
I was going to jump in really quick, Wes, and just kind of echo, the points already made. For traditional Midwestern markets, I would agree, maybe you didn't see the international students show up in the way that you have in prior years, because in a lot of cases, and anybody on the panel can agree or disagree with me, you kind of depend on that for your later leasing, like your April, May, June, kind of that time frame. And so it was really interesting, especially in our markets where we could lease up before the end of the school year of we really didn't even have the space for that in some cases. We do have one property at Florida International. So obviously, heavy international population coming from a lot of different directions. And so, that one was interesting because that's what we're prepared for in that market. But in our Midwestern markets, when you're used to kind of those later leases into the summertime, a lot of markets, the domestic students really just kind of made decisions quicker and you were leased up by the time that you would see that big rush of international students. And so I don't know that anybody on the panel really felt that pulse maybe the way that they have in prior years. I don't know if anybody would agree or disagree with that.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. Hey, let's really quick. I've got before I completely get off of LeaseCon, TurnCon, I did put up a poll question on that just to see how many folks are already registered or hope to come. Would love to see your answers on that. But let's go ahead and get over to marketing plans. In our preliminary call, we talked a little bit about how this last year's leasing season, especially in a lot of your flagship markets, how that's had an impact on how you're allocating dollars for the marketing budget this coming year. So Jake, I think I'll hand that off to you.
Awesome. Just making sure I can't see y'all, but I think you can see me and hear me. Is that still the case?
We can see you and hear you. Yeah.
Solid. Here I am with my deep, dark thoughts, and I'm just talking into my webcam. I can't see anything. Story of my life. So here's what it comes down to. Every single market that you're in is going to be completely different, with a different client, with a different asset class. And I think everything that we're talking about today coalesces into what that marketing plan looks like, what the budget looks like, and it's multifactorial, right? I think Alex touched on this. What is the life cycle of the asset? Is it a new acquisition and this is a 5-year hold? Is this at the end of the 5-year or the 7-year hold, and this either needs to refi or it needs to be sold? Mm-hmm. And what is the market looking like right now for those sales? All of those factor into what this looks like, and what if this is an owned asset versus a fee managed or third party asset. And I think that what it's going to come down to is sitting down individually with every single one of the stakeholders and saying, all right, y'all, what are the goals for this year? Mm-hmm. And how does our marketing reflect what that looks like? Are we pumping massive amounts into more social? Is this a Google PPC market? And we've also seen that every single market is different. I've got some markets where social is very powerful and works very well. And then I have other markets where it's not as big. I've got some where I can use, for instance, a web listers program and really focus on that. And others, I do not want to get those leads when I go with that marketing channel. So I think to answer your question, this takes it takes a village, right? This is not just a community manager sitting down and saying, I think we need to do this. The best and most appropriate and most powerful way for you to get this done is to involve as many people as possible, from your marketing teams to your on-site teams. Your community managers 100% need to know and understand their market backwards and forwards. They have to be the best at understanding what's going on. Are there any new builds? What is the shadow market doing? Is the shadow market becoming more powerful? All of those, and bringing every single one of those thought leaders into the same conversation in the same room and saying, all right, y'all, what does this look like with these goals? What do we need to do and put into this that's going to have the greatest impact? And you cannot do this on an island. You have to involve as many of those site team members as possible to make the best decision here.
Great. Mm-hmm. Hey, before the next panelist takes a stab at that, just want to let everybody know I did launch a poll that says, if you were changing anything with your marketing budget, which expenses are you putting more attention on for the upcoming leasing season? More SEO and PPC is one answer, more dollars for social media and other digital advertising, more money for outreach activities and on the ground advertising. And then the fourth option that I kind of threw out there, because I've heard this from several managers this year. They had a ton of underclassmen, sophomore, juniors, that they were really wanting to focus. They only had like a 15 to 20% retention rate, and so they were really going to be focusing a lot of money on resident retention. So, would love to see if there's anybody that's doing that as well. But anyway, I don't know who wants to take the next step.
I would just say, from a budgeting standpoint, one of the most common questions I'm sure that not only the folks on this panel can agree with, but also the folks in the chat is, if you lease to 100% in 5 months, where can we cut costs? Like, where can we shave? And I'm sure that's probably the most common question that everyone's getting right now. And typically the response that I give to that is, if it's not broken, then why are we trying to fix it, right? And so, like, how do we want to look from a branding standpoint? How do we want to look from the student standpoint? To, Devin's point earlier, the experience of that resident, of the student, that all goes into marketing. And if there is one thing I am passionate about, we all started this webinar saying we love leasing. I love people, and I am so incredibly passionate about people. And I will never, ever, ever stop saying that the people is more important than the product itself. So to your poll of more money for outreach and boots on the ground advertising, putting people in front of people will always be one of the things that I am always very, very passionate to, because you have students, they need that in-person communication. They need to see that other student right in front of them that can explain the day in the life and how great that building is. But again, it's not about just the building. It's about evoking emotion through experience, having conversations with a real person, and not maybe just a chatbot on your website. There is so many great things to SEO, PPC, chatbots, online, ILSs. But you don't always have to be on every ILS. If it means bringing in a really good person that can close your deals and put your money towards maybe payroll versus just marketing, you should pivot and do that, because people are going to be more impactful than the marketing dollars that you spend on t-shirts and other things in that arena. So my biggest point right now would be people are going to be a part of that marketing budget, whether it goes towards payroll or it goes towards on the ground advertising.
I always look at it is that to answer the question is basically is that you had a phenomenal year. Why are you throwing away the playbook? You had a phenomenal year, because we have the same question constantly. Be like, can we shave this? Can we move some payroll down? Do we need to do this? No, you won the Super Bowl. Why do you want to change the playbook? So there has to be that balance of, yes, we can throttle this down, but also we can throttle those things down towards the end of the lease up if we're being very successful.
I think I agree with both of y'all, right? You can't go in and say, all right, I want another year of strong rate growth, but then cut expenses. Now, sure, the marketing department is able to make much more informed decisions based on data and say, okay, this we didn't see the ROI here, so let's reallocate the dollars in this area instead. But to reduce expenses, especially in marketing, could actually be detrimental to a successful lease up.
I was just
going to cost more to restart, right? I mean, it costs
Exactly.
a lot more to restart the campaign. We see that in certain markets, whereas everything's going along really well and you're ahead, and then all of a sudden some comps decide to go nuclear on rates and concessions, and then you got to restart everything and you lose your momentum.
So I want to build off of that for 1 second. So just from the panelists, what is the one market you think is going to go nuclear this year?
That's a loaded question.
Anybody throwing Austin into it?
Well, I think Austin's already nuclear.
It's already on fire. It's already the atomic bomb has already hit it. What are you talking about? Go nuclear? It's already gone.
Yeah, you need the hazmat, right?
Yeah,
you need the full hazmat suit for that market. I think market Bloomington, Indiana's one. I think that's going to go very nuclear this year. I think Orlando is primed up to go that way.
Okay.
Gainesville, I guess, is already nuclear as well, but Gainesville and College Park actually come to mind for me too.
I don't have an asset in College Park, but that is a good one. College Park is a good one.
It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, anything on the West Coast?
West Coast we fared really well here for the most part. There are some interesting nuances in Idaho, and more specifically related to a private school and we have a large number of beds there. And that one, I mean, nuclear just would be like the low level of the craziness that we're seeing there. But that's all related very specifically to a private school. And so I wouldn't necessarily, count that one as a market that's doing strange things, because it's beyond strange there. But we fared really well, luckily, knock on wood, for our West Coast side of things.
Gotcha. Devin, any markets for you? And I think you were about to mention something else.
Yeah. When the panelists say markets like Bloomington and stuff like that, where you have constant development and, we have seen successful rent growth, it makes you a little bit nervous. Back to Alex's point about the people, I think I just want to add to my career bucket list that her and I go to campus with a wagon full of t-shirts and
yes,
what we can get up to. But I would just really encourage people to take a look at the development pipeline in their markets. New developments, their strategies are based very strongly off of social media. That's where they get their initial followers that they put on their VIP list for when they do, their big open house for their temporary leasing office. So I would just encourage people, if you have developments coming in, you really have to step up your content creation for social media, because you're going to be rivaled very strongly by those new developments coming into the market. And so some of the markets that they've mentioned, I totally agree. Would love to get to campus with Alex sometime. I think we could have some fun. And, I would just pay very close attention to what developments you have coming into the market, because they're going to crush their social media game if they're going to do it right. So you have to be ready to step up on the content creation side to rival what they're doing and capture that digital audience before, they build up that huge wave of interest and excitement about something new coming into the market.
Well, hey, that's a perfect transition for the next topic, which is all on staffing, finding, motivating the leasing staff over the past three seasons has presented a lot of challenges. So, we talked a little bit in our pre-call about, how that has changed things. So I've got two questions. Are you changing anything with compensation? And by the way, I've got a poll that I'm going to put out regarding both compensation and other things regarding part-time staff. But yes, are you changing up compensation, and is the job description for any of your leasing staff evolving?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the highlights that we've talked about today was that the big rent growth, and the on-site staff has to be compensated for that. It has to be GPR growth has to now be a KPI. And we have to look at that and just say it's just not the traditional bucket of NOI or occupancy. We like to have 4 or 5 different, to keep the staff engaged. One of the key principles is basically, we talked about this earlier, that 50% of the rates have already been approved. The minute rates go out, that the bonus structure for next year has to be approved and go out too. You can't just say, hey guys, we're going to go out. We want to get 15% rent growth, or we want to get 5%, or we want to hit 95%, and then not give them also that extra motivation. So yeah, I mean, have fun with it, but also make sure we keep highlighting this over and over, is that the staff on the ground is going to get it done. They have to be compensated to do so.
Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
Wes, I'd say that the next new war will be the war on talent. I think that, again, you're only as good as your boots on the ground. And I think that's kind of the next big thing that we're going to be looking at is, are you warring for these people? Are you finding individuals? And what does your training program look like to take really good, very smart, customer service oriented people and bring them up? Or do you look within the industry and try to, cross recruit from competitors? And I think really the companies that can either find and retain or obtain and retain through working within the industry, I think those who get it right and find that magic way of keeping those amazing people, keeping them well paid, I think that's the next hurdle. And I think those companies that can do that right are going to be the ones that you'll see really succeed.
It goes back to the people being everything. I mean, really, it does. I mean, people are what close leases. People are everything. I do not sign a check for anybody's payroll, so I can't talk about payroll. But what I can